So, what happens when you tweak just one tiny rule in a truly massive financial system? Well, the EU is about to find out. We're going to dive into a landmark change in insurance rules that could unlock a huge pool of money, and it all comes down to a single 10 trillion euro question.
Right? 10 trillion euros. Let that number sink in for a second. That's the staggering amount of assets that European insurance companies manage. It's one of the largest pools of private capital on the entire planet. And let's be clear, this isn't just some abstract number. It's a financial superpower, really, just waiting to be put to work.
You can think of this 10 trillion euros as a massive river of cash, a river that has the potential to fund, well, everything, from cutting-edge tech startups to the huge green energy projects we need. The regulation itself even says that insurers are particularly well-placed to provide this kind of stable, long-term funding to the economy.
But what happens if that powerful river is being held back by a dam that's, just a little too high? What if the very rules that were designed for safety are actually stopping that capital from flowing to where it's needed the most? That's the exact question that regulators all across Europe have been wrestling with. Okay, so to really get what's changing, we first have to understand the old rules. Let's talk about that original safety net, a framework that you might have heard of called Solvency II. Solvency II was basically born out of the 2008 financial crisis. Its mission was pretty simple and pretty noble, really. Make absolutely sure that no matter what crazy thing happens in the markets, your insurance company has enough cash on hand to pay its claims. The entire system was built around one single idea: caution. Extreme caution.
But here's the kicker. Over time, even the regulators, the people who wrote the rules, started to feel that maybe this caution had gone a little too far. I mean, this quote is from the new regulation itself, and it admits that the old rules were overly conservative, effectively tying the hands of insurers who wanted to make those important long-term investments.
So what happened? Well, that safety net, the one designed to protect the whole system, ended up feeling more like a straitjacket. It actively discouraged insurers from putting their capital into things like company stocks or big infrastructure projects because the rules just made it way too expensive to do so.
And that brings us to today and to this massive shift in thinking. The EU has decided to redesign the rules, not just to play defense anymore, but to go on offense and actually unlock this enormous pool of investment capital.
This slide just nails the change in philosophy. Look, the old goals on the left, stability, protecting policyholders, they're still there. That's absolutely not negotiable. But now, look at the right. There's an explicit added mission to fund the real economy, to support the green and digital transitions, and to boost Europe's overall competitiveness. The job of an insurer is no longer just about managing risk. It's about fueling growth too. This quote really gets to the heart of the new mindset. The goal is to strategically remove unjustified layers of prudence. You can see it's a really delicate balancing act, right? They're trying to lower that dam just enough to let the river of capital flow into the economy, but without risking the safety of the whole structure.
And you might be asking, why the big push right now? Well, because the EU is facing, and I'm quoting the regulation again, massive financing needs. We're talking about everything from the European Green Deal to the push for digital independence to even shoring up defense. All of it needs trillions in investment. This rule change is about directing that river of insurance money towards these critical goals.
So that's the why. But how does this all actually work in practice? Let's get into the nitty-gritty of the new rulebook.
This right here is one of the biggest changes. Before, if an insurer wanted to, say, buy shares in a company, the rules made them hold a ton of backup capital, just in case. That made it super expensive. Now, the new rules give what they call preferential treatment, basically a discount to long-term equity investments. This makes it way more attractive for insurers to become the kind of patient capital that innovative companies need to really grow. The reforms also tackle transparency. For years, every single insurer had to produce this massive document, the Solvency and Financial Condition Report. It was supposed to tell you everything about their financial health, but honestly, it was often hundreds of pages long, super technical. It was pretty much useless to a normal person.
So, the new approach is really smart. It splits the report in two. For you, the average policyholder, you now get this, a simple, clear 5-page summary. The rules demand that it be easy for a layperson to understand. So finally, you can actually get a quick snapshot of how your insurer is doing.
But what about the market professionals, right? The analysts who need all that granular data. Well, they're not being left out. They get a separate, incredibly detailed report with all the deep dive info they need to do their jobs. It's a great solution. Give the right information to the right audience. And this whole reform isn't just about the giants of the industry. There's also a big focus on making the rules smarter and more efficient for the smaller insurance companies out there. It's a concept called proportionality, making sure the rules actually fit the size of the business.
So they've created this whole new category of small and non-complex companies. And for these firms, it's a game changer. The regulatory burden is getting slashed. We're talking less red tape, simpler reporting, lower costs. It frees them up to focus on what they do best, serving their customers.
So when you step back and look at the whole picture, what is this really? At the end of the day, it's a huge economic bet. The EU is taking a very calculated risk, hoping to spark a whole new wave of private investment.
And this table here lays out the stakes perfectly. On the left, you have the expectation that insurers will take this newly freed up capital and pour it into productive investments. But on the right, you have the watchdog. Regulators are going to be watching like hawks to see where the money actually goes. Is it funding innovation? Or is it just going to bigger shareholder payouts and executive bonuses? Trust me, they'll be tracking everything.
Yeah, this is not a set it and forget it kind of policy. The new rules kick in around 2026. Then, by the end of 2028, the first big report card is due. It'll detail exactly how insurers have used this capital. So, you see, accountability is baked right into the timeline from the very start.
Which brings us right back to where we started, with that 10 trillion euro question. By shifting the rules from pure maximum caution to a more balanced prudence, have policymakers in the EU successfully turned one of the world's largest pools of capital into a powerful new engine for economic growth? The answer to that is going to shape Europe's economy for decades to come.